get moving here today. Gunnar Stockton, the quarterback for South Carolina, the five-star prospect, tweeted out earlier today, and let's make sure that I give you the proper info here. From his Twitter account, he says, after much discussion and prayer with my family, I've decided to decommit from the University of South Carolina from the University of South Carolina. Back in August, I made the decision to commit to the university program and staff. A lot has changed since that time, and I feel that I should reevaluate my situation. I want to thank Connor Shaw for all his love, support, and understanding. Please no interviews at this time. Much respect, Gunnar Stockton. That is a polite way of saying you changed your entire coaching staff, and now I'm going to go somewhere else. That's basically what we've got there. Now, you want to talk about somebody who's gone up the ranks as far as, wow, people will not like him very much. You got to go with Mike Bobo, the former offensive coordinator for South Carolina. Yeah, lots of people are on the train of, man, this is not, especially down at the 247 sports sites have crystal balls for him going to Auburn now. Maybe that's the way it's going to go. I don't know. But it ends up being a mess for South Carolina. We'll take calls on that, too, this afternoon at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Just kind of a big announcement there for South Carolina. On the Clemson front, they had a young man, Darian Kendrick, who said, hey, he's coming back. He spent a lot of time in Dabo Swinney's doghouse. That's the best way that I can put it, with the way that things went for him. This season, missed 3 games, and it was probably a good idea for him to come back. So your response on both of those, but then we got to go to this. And I knew last night, as soon as the game was over, that this was going to happen. It did not take them that long. I mean, I was shocked. As soon as I heard them say it, I knew that the SEC apologists were going to be out in full force last night. The first words out of their mouth were, the SEC's won 12, 12 out of the last 15 national, whatever the number is, okay? But then it was even worse. It was, could this Alabama team be the best team of all time? Did you watch football last season, ladies and gentlemen? Because I know people are thinking, oh, well, Rob's going to say that it was the Clemson team from 2018. We can go with that 2018 team, by the way, which I think would give this Alabama team a hell of a game. And if you think that I'm wrong on that, look at that 2018 team, that Alabama team there, the team that Clemson beat, the team that the Paul Feinbaums of the world said, oh, they have no shot in hell. No, we don't have to go with that. Why don't we go with the LSU team from last year? Just so people can say that I'm not completely rallying to the thought of, oh, the SEC apologists and everything else. I give you the LSU team from last year. All right? I think that LSU team could beat this Alabama team. Simple as that. I think they had a better quarterback in Joe Burrow, and Jamar Chase is just as good as Devontae Smith. I'm sorry if that hurts people's feelings. When they go into the NFL arena, they're going to look at them, and I think there's a lot more people that are going to look at Jamar Chase and say, you know what? That's a better player to get. Just saying. So the folks that are out there saying, hey, this is the best team ever, let's slow down just for a little bit. Didn't take Mac Jones long. Now, he plays on the team. You got to think that he is going to be the absolute best. Yeah, here's what Mac Jones had to say.
I think we're the best team to ever play. I mean, there's no team that will ever play SEC schedule like that again, but at the same time, we're just so happy to have won this game and kind of put the icing on the cake.
So this all SEC schedule, which is the dumbest thing ever. Oh, we played an all SEC schedule. What that says is that Alabama didn't get to schedule 3 teams that are garbage to pump their win level up. Let's just be honest. Alabama's been doing this forever. They tried to kill the UAB program. There's a story behind that. Then they have the whole adage of, yeah, we're going to play everything at a neutral site. We're not going to play anything as far as a home and home. And we're going to play the bottom tier teams of all the Power 5 conferences. And we're going to expect you to think that that's an absolute great schedule. So with that, let's look at the Alabama schedule for 2019 or 2020. Okay? For this Alabama schedule, here's the interesting thing with that. Yes, it was an all SEC schedule. You end up with Texas A&M. That's a good team. I'll give you that. After that, what have you got? You've got 7th-ranked Florida in the SEC championship game and Georgia, who didn't play them with their best player. There's your schedule, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. If you go back to LSU's schedule, they went on the road to play Texas. They also beat a Clemson team that was a pretty good Clemson team. Not a team from the Big Ten that only played 8 games. So this adage that Alabama's the absolute best team ever because last night they slapped around Ohio State is a joke. Would love to take your calls on this at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Are they one of the top 5 teams? Yes, we can definitely put them in that conversation. But as far as the best team ever, they're not the best team of the CFP era. Write that down. 803-978-1832. I'll take the LSU team from last year. Although the Clemson team from 2018, when you look at what they've had and what they beat, that to me is a more complete team than this Alabama team. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call. If you want to sound off on Gunnar Stockton leaving the South Carolina program, have at it. We'll talk about that as well as we get rolling here on the rundown this afternoon, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400 in Columbia. Thank you guys for checking us out. Amir says, yes, that is the best team ever. Okay, well, call up and tell me why, Amir. Let's go out to the phones. Good afternoon. Welcome to the rundown.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Hey, what's up?
I completely agree with you on talking about Alabama and their schedule and all that. I mean, because if you look, last night, I thought that Ohio State really, and it's not that Alabama's defense, I know people keep talking about them, but I mean, this is the same defense that gave up 46 points to Florida and 48 to Ole Miss earlier in the year. And I just don't think that they played like you were saying, compared to LSU last year and even Clemson, I don't think they really played a very good. Well, I mean, I'm not saying their schedule was bad. I'm just saying it wasn't as strong as, let's say, an LSU or somebody like that last year.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a valid point, man. But it's just that I'm looking at it from the perspective of the amount of good Power 5 teams that they played compared to what LSU played. I just think it's not close. I mean, they're a great team, but it's just not close. The only people who disagree with me are the Alabama fans. I mean, that's basically what it boils down to. The Alabama fans will be running their mouth about, oh, this is the best team ever. And they're telling me that I'm losing my mind because Alabama won last night. I don't care, okay, on that front. The reality is that you can't claim you're the best team ever when you didn't play the schedule that makes you think that you can stack up, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And I mean, even in some of those games, they didn't live up. I mean, I know I keep going back to Ole Miss. Yes, Ole Miss is not elite, but they gave them all they could handle for about 4 quarters. And and I mean, if Georgia would have been a little bit better, they could have got him.
Well,
and I mean,
Georgia played them with the wrong quarterback. Kirby Smart was a moron and didn't play JT Daniels. He had JT Daniels as his 3rd string quarterback for that game. That says all you need to know about Kirby Smart and his coaching staff.
Oh, I know. He's a terrible offensive. He's a terrible coach when it comes to his offensive game plan. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I mean, I don't think. I mean, I know that Alabama. You can say that. Oh well, they look pretty good, but I mean, Ohio State's defense is not very good. And really and truly, I mean, not taking anything away from the Clemson-Ohio State game, but Ohio State pretty much played perfect.
The same thing would have happened to Clemson if Clemson played them last night. So it's not a prop up for Clemson. I'm just saying overall, it didn't take long for them to think, oh, this is the absolute best team ever. It's not. So
yeah, I mean, I agree with you.
All right, buddy. Thanks for calling the program, man. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a good day, Rob.
803-978-1832. David with some common sense over there in the chat room. LSU's team from last year would have beat them. Clemson's 18 team would have beat them. Go back further. 01 Canes would have put up a fight. 95 Huskers. We can go on and on and on. RMF Todd says even with JT Daniels, the results wouldn't have been different. You're telling me that Georgia game wouldn't have been closer with Daniels? Okay. Another Jed. Thanks for tuning into the show, Jed. What a great name Jed is. If we were going to have another kid at home, I'd name him Jed just because I like that name. It's one thing when top SEC schools are really good to point to the schedule. With Georgia, LSU, and Auburn all being down somewhat, it makes the argument ridiculous. Florida and the Aggies both showed against LSU that neither of them are elite. Oof. Big statement there. That's going to be the one where everybody gets together at the SEC meetings down in Birmingham, and everybody's got their Alabama lower back tattoos and their Nick Saban tattoos going on their forearms. Yeah, they're going to be talking about all that. Oh, that doesn't make any sense. That'll start a fight. Brock's talking about Stockton decommitting. Is Mike Bobo the most hated person right now among South Carolina fans? Because it looks like he's trending to go to Auburn. And he said in his tweet, ladies and gentlemen, the tweet was the big thing. The tweet from this guy said point blank, hey, a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have changed. I want to read you the tweet one more time from Gunnar Stockton, the 5-star quarterback that was committed to South Carolina. Here's what he said. After much discussion and prayer with my family, I've decided to decommit from the University of South Carolina back in August. I made the decision to commit to the university program and staff. A lot has changed since that time, and I feel I should reevaluate my situation. He thanked one person from South Carolina. That would be Connor Shaw for all of his love, support, and understanding. That to me says the writing on the wall, he's going to probably end up going to Auburn. Just saying. If you want to call and talk about that, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call. If you want to join us here on the rundown this afternoon, let's make sure that we put this out there too. Alabama was the best team by far this season. Okay? They were light years ahead of everybody else. I think that you could have put anyone up against them from this year, and they would lose by at least 2 touchdowns. Okay? So let's not put out there that I'm ripping this entire Alabama team. But for this to come out of one of the players saying, hey, I think that this.
Play. I mean, there's no team that will ever play SEC schedule like that again, but at the same time, we're just so happy to have won this game and kind of put the icing on the cake.
Yeah. No. That's not how it works. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832 is the number to call. If you want to join us here on the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400, around the world on the iHeartRadio app, as we can discuss that this afternoon. A final look at the AP Top 25. If you want to talk about Clemson getting Darion Kendrick to come back as kind of a building block for next season's defense, we can get into that as well. But do you think this Alabama team is the best ever? We can talk about that this afternoon as we roll along here on the rundown. So some of the comments. Alan says UGA lost the starting quarterback 3 weeks before the season and still finished 7th. Yeah, it's not an issue of my whole thing with the whole Georgia situation comes down to they had issues with finding their quarterback till late in the season. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown.
Hey, man, I was sitting back eating my bacon, and you know what I mean? I was just thinking the Gamecocks got themselves a coach with Will Muschamp over there. I think he's going to do pretty good.
Yeah,
Maybe
you're
lead
wrong
to a
on that,
national
brother.
championship here.
That's not going to work. Will Muschamp isn't
I
there,
think-
man.
Sir,
Yeah.
wait, what'd you say?
Yeah, you're not helping the program today, buddy. Will Muschamp is not the coach at South Carolina. It's Shane Beamer. So got to help the gentleman out there. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. David Penn says he's right. No team will ever play another SEC schedule like that. COVID won't deplete teams in the conference forever, and opt-outs won't be allowed once the pandemic passes. That's a valid point too. But just, hey, you played an all SEC schedule, and that means that you're the absolute best ever. That is some false hope, ladies and gentlemen. That's what that is. 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you want to join us on the Rundown this afternoon, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Brock has a good point. A&M, I think, is good. They finished fourth in the country, so you can't really argue that. Their only loss was to Alabama. The rest of their schedule, their regular season stuff, I mean, okay. Okay. Way to go, Alabama. Way to go. That's a good point there, Clemson Power of the Paul. Hey, David's just spitting facts today, man. Way to go, David. Look at Brock's making some sense today. Look at you, Brock. Appreciate that. Welcome back into the Rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Around the world on the iHeart Radio app. My name is Rob Sanders, 803-978-1832. The final AP Top 25 came out today, and if you need more recognition to show you that this Alabama schedule that they played was not exactly the best, Alabama, at the end of the season, as far as their regular season goes, they had a win over Texas A&M, a win over 7th-ranked Georgia. After that, I'm looking through the rest of the top 25 here. This is regular season games now. As I look through the rest of it, just to make sure, they had 2 top 25 regular season wins on the season. Now, for the Alabama fans and the SEC fans that are saying things over here like the ACC schedule was crap for Clemson, Clemson played 2 ranked teams in the top 25 at the end of the season. I understand that these things hurt your feelings, but let's just be honest. According to the top 25, they played the same amount of ranked teams. I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news when it comes to that, but it's not necessarily them. It's unless you have to pull Ohio State out of it because they only played, 2/3 of a season. Okay. The best meme of the day, by the way, I think it was a meme or someone put it out on Facebook and said, I don't understand why Ohio State fans are upset. It's only game 8. Man, rub their nose in it a little bit. Oof. Tough. But make sure that I put it out there for the people that are going to put stuff out there later on about things that I said. I did not say this Alabama team was not the best of the season. Never said that. I'm just saying that they're not the best ever. And their schedule was not the best ever. They played 2 top 25 teams in the regular season. Simple as that. Same amount of top 25 teams that Clemson played. Your calls, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. SEC dog who should be upset at Kirby Smart for being the doofus that he is and not figuring out that the stuff that goes on with his quarterback situation there. I don't know how JT Daniels is 3rd on the depth chart. It says Indiana is a top 10 team that lost to Ole Miss. Good point, sir. Good point. David says, I'm by no means an ACC fan, but Notre Dame, UNC, and the U were all pretty good this year. Better than most of the SEC teams. I could buy that for $1. Against the majority of the SEC teams, I'll take North Carolina. I'll take Notre Dame. Miami, they're right there in the mix too, but just a step below those two. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Nectorious says, are you saying that Clemson's schedule was as difficult as Alabama? I'm saying that Alabama played 2 ranked teams and Clemson played 2 ranked teams. That's what I said. Are you going to try to tell me that I'm supposed to respect Alabama's schedule because they're just in the SEC and they have SEC patches on there and that makes them superhuman? No, I'm not going to do that. Not going to do it. Out to the phones we go. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
Hey, what's up? How are you, man?
I'm good. I was listening online and I couldn't help but the title of it caught me. The greatest team ever.
Right.
So are we seriously going to compare this Alabama team to Nebraska of the 70s or Oklahoma of the mid 80s or, God forbid, even the 95 Nebraska team?
Well, sir, with all due respect, I didn't do that. The 4-letter network, within 5 minutes of them hoisting the trophy, were doing that. And Mac Jones was saying stuff like this.
I think we're the best team to ever play. I mean, there's no team that will ever play SEC schedule like that again. But at the same time, we're just so happy to have won this game and kind of put the icing on the cake.
I mean, I didn't say that. That's what they're trying to feed us. And I think that is a line of mess, man.
Well, in Mac Jones's defense, he does only have an Alabama education, so we can't expect a whole lot better.
Okay. Well, but I don't even think they're the best team of the CFP era. I would take the LSU team from last year and the Clemson team from the year before, where Clemson won by 28 points over Alabama in a team full of NFL stars. I'll take that team over this Alabama team. I think they're the 3rd best team of the CFP era.
Yeah, probably. And I would say Alabama's 2017 team was probably better than this one.
Yeah, you can line them up too. So, hey, I'd go for 4th. Why not? I mean, you're right there in the mix.
And I'm not even trying to take the homer pick, okay? I've called in a couple of times. I'm a Miami fan. I left the 0-1 Canes out of the argument. So, like I said, and I think you said it perfectly. They're not the best one of the college football playoff era. And this is something else I noticed last night.
Right.
And I don't think any other coach in the history of football would ever get away with it. And in my opinion, he ought to be ashamed of himself. Nick Saban having Jalen Waddle out there dragging his leg up and down the field. He never should have been in that game. If that had been any other coach, they'd have been fired on the spot and run out of coaching.
That's a definite I'm not a doctor, but you can see that he was injured and probably shouldn't have been out there. So there's that.
Yeah, I was not a fan of that move. I mean, I don't get into, the whole people that have problems with coaches' attitudes. I could care less about that. But when you're going to put a blatantly injured player out on the field, I think you should be run out of your profession altogether.
Well, there you go. Hey, man, appreciate you calling us on the Rundown today. Thanks so much.
Yes, sir.
All right, there you go. He's not happy that Waddle was out there playing. And there wasn't a lot talked about that. And if there was, I missed it. But you could tell he was hurt. You could definitely tell he was hurt. So, yeah, it's that was painful to watch. To see him out there basically dragging his leg a little bit and not being on the field. I mean, he shouldn't have been out there. If you want to call and talk about that, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. The 01 Canes, they're in the mix over there in the chat room. People are big time about that. G Bama Boy says Waddle was fine. His parents said he can play. He looked like he was hobbled. He looked like he was dragging his leg. He wasn't the Jalen Waddle of old. Just saying. I mean, I'm no doctor, so I don't want people thinking that I'm Dr. Rob Sanders because I'm not. I do see guys on the field, guys not doing what he normally does. Maybe he shouldn't be out there. Just saying. David says that's the history of that team. Look what they did to Tua Tagovailoa. I don't know the whole backside of all of that. So either way, that's a mess. Should he have stayed on the bench? Well, definitely we can talk about that too at 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you want to join us here on the rundown this afternoon on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Jed says, why can't people be happy being the champion? Why do they now have to be the best ever? And I mean, even those LSU guys spewing that mess last year. Yeah, I think that people like to have that perspective. It's the whole thing with Michael Jordan. Is LeBron James better than Michael Jordan? We always have to have, like, who's at the top of the hill? Who's the king of the mountain? That's what we always have there. So with that, you don't have to have this whole mentality of, hey, we're the best ever. Be the best from this year and let history move on. I just thought it was cute that the 4-letter network was out quick with, oh, this is the absolute best team ever. Could this be one of the best teams ever? Not even the best of the CFP era. 2017 Alabama team, the more and more I think about it, probably beats this team. 2018 Clemson gives them a heck of a matchup. Last year's LSU team probably beats them. Joe Burrow would have ate that secondary for breakfast. Stop with the nonsense that you're the absolute best. Just calm down. It's okay. Be the champion for this year. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you want to join us here on the rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Bama Boy, it's hard for me to take you seriously when you guys claim national championships that aren't exactly real. I mean, just because the Alabama student newspaper gives you a national title doesn't mean that you're the national champion. This has happened before. So stop with that nonsense. Alabama lies about the amount of national championships they've had. We've talked about this before. Did you win this year? Are you the best team this year? Outstanding. Yep. Without a doubt. Could beat every team in this season by 14 points or more. But to sit here and say, oh, we're the best ever, stop with that nonsense. And stop with the whole thing of expecting us to take you seriously because, Alabama lies about national championships. By the way, shout out to Gary Mills. My buddy got me some socks. Can you guys read that? Look at that. Your team sucks. Doesn't matter what team you have. Oh, way to go with all that. Do I think Clemson would have been a better matchup? No, I don't think Clemson would have been a better matchup. I think Clemson would have lost by probably the same amount. I really do. Now, the Ohio State fans, they'll tell you they had guys that were out and everything else, and I'm not buying all that. You roll with what you got. David's upset with Gary. That's great. He came by the station today and gave me those. I I get frustrated too with the way that the recruiting goes, man, where it's all about relationships, and it's sad. I mean, I expect you folks that tune in to watch Jackpot, his video on Gunnar Stockton decommitting, I'm sure will be outstanding later on. I know he's going to put that together. Wow. Tough on that, man. All right, here we go. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you want to join us here on the rundown this afternoon. You can join us and get into the conversation. Is this Alabama team the best ever? I mean, Mac Jones said that they were. Just saying. You can definitely talk about that. You could talk about the game last night. One of the questions that was floated in the chat room was, would Clemson have given them a better matchup? Nope. I think Clemson would have lost by probably 20 points too. And that's not being disrespectful to the Tigers. I just think that this year, this Alabama team was that good for this season. Now, according to the rest of the stuff that I've looked at, I think that I like the 2017 Alabama team better in the CFP era. I like the 2018 Clemson team and the 2019 LSU team. I think all three of those teams could beat this Alabama team. Just saying. Simple as that. In fact, you know what? The team that Alabama beat in the playoff, the Georgia team, I think that Georgia team could beat this Alabama team. Look at that team. I think they could. So the runner-up in 2017, in my mind, could probably beat this Alabama team from this season. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. I got to look at the full roster on that, but I think they would be a heck of a lot closer than any team that was out there this season. 803-978-1832 is the number to call. By the way, we talked about Gunnar Stockton decommitting from South Carolina, having the relationship with Connor Shaw. How important is the whole adage of, when you really stop and look at it, the relationships that some of these kids have with coaches, and that's how a lot of the recruiting ends up. Let's head out to the phones. Good afternoon. Welcome into the rundown.
Good afternoon, young man. Happy New Year.
Good afternoon to you, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good.
What can I help you with today?
What you help me with? I mean, you talk about the Clemson team, you talk about the Alabama team, you talk about the LSU team, but if I'm not mistaken, that 2000-2001 Miami Hurricane team would have took care of all three of them. I hang up and listen.
I mentioned the Miami team earlier, but thank you for calling, sir. You're absolutely right about that. That Miami team would be right there in the mix. Right there in the mix. So there's that. So, yeah, that 2001 Miami team was a machine. Can't really argue that. But getting back to what I was talking about with these coaches, man, look at the domino effect of losing your coaching staff. Now, I don't know how great this Gunnar Stockton kid is going to be, but if 5 years down the line, this guy's talking about, he's in the Heisman conversation, which, I'm not saying he's going to be there, but I'm saying he's a 5-star quarterback that everyone's in love with. Dual threat guy from Georgia, one of the highest rated players in the 2022 class. Now, think about this. Everyone wanted to get rid of Will Muschamp, and I get that. All right, he wasn't getting the job done. But with that move, ended up with Mike Bobo leaving, which ended up with this young man decommitting. It's amazing how one thing can absolutely lead to another. And you know what? He may end up at Auburn. He may end up at Auburn. And Gamecock fans can sit here, 5 years from now, 4 years from now, whatever it is. Man, that guy could have had a Gamecock uniform on. It's so funny when you follow the dots of where things were and where they end up. Or it could just go off into oblivion and no one will know. No one will remember it. But if he does make it big, wow. We'll take your calls at 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. Brock says South Carolina could get him back if they show potential or improvement. Isn't that putting too much into one student athlete? I mean, he hasn't taken a snap on the college field yet. Remember Roscoe Crosby for Clemson? Old folks will remember that. I say old folks, but guy was like a big, two-sport athlete, was going to be the best player that ever played at Clemson and wasn't even there. Didn't really have the career that people talked about. So sometimes those recruiting rankings can be hot dog water. That's the best term that you can go with. Sometimes they can be great. Sometimes they couldn't. They couldn't be that great. Another example is Xavier Thomas, who hasn't had the career he should have up at Clemson. I mean, we don't even have to discuss that. I mean, was supposed to be a knockdown defensive player and hasn't quite blossomed into what he should be. Out to the phones we go. Good afternoon. Welcome into the rundown.
How's it going, Rob?
Hey, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing well. It's Dave.
Dave, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Not a whole bunch. So let's talk about recruiting real quick. You and I on CSF Late Night to talk about other things and stuff.
What you got,
let's
man?
talk about recruiting.
Sure.
Here's why I don't put a whole lot of pension on where the kid ends up. I mean, I understand as a fan of programs. I mean, LSU loses big targets every year to whatever program. So does every university, right?
Right.
So what it comes down to is, what does the kid believe is in the best interest of the kid? And here's why I don't get mad about it, because it's an 18-year-old kid's life and what he's trying to build for himself. So even if he commits to University A one day and then there's some type of change, or maybe he talks to somebody from another school and is like, well, I like this better. Ultimately, that kid's going to make the decision that he thinks is best for him. So, I mean, it's easy. Like, who is the kid from Georgia last year? A 5-star running back. He was committed to like 2 or 3 different schools. I think he ended up at TCU. He was like this big time running back recruit.
Right.
He was committed to everybody. And then he ends up at TCU. I mean, in the end, most people got the impression that he was a flake and that they didn't want him at their university anyway. But I mean, so Gunnar Stockton, he decommitting burns for the fans of the university when it initially happens, but it doesn't mean that there is an opportunity for the university to grab another recruit. Tristan Lay committed to Clemson,
right?
Which is
a
huge target.
Why don't we hit you close to home, sir? And we talk about Joe Burrow being at Ohio State and then transferring to LSU. He couldn't, he had to make the choice to go somewhere else to get playing time. They didn't. They wanted to roll with somebody else, and it ends up burning Ohio State and benefiting LSU.
It did, and it's not like when Joe Burrow was at Ohio State that people at Ohio State didn't think he had ability. I think the moment he had a chance, I believe he was injured, and that's when Dwayne Haskins went in.
Right.
But Dwayne Haskins got the opportunity because Burrow was injured. If Burrow wasn't injured and he goes in and does something similar to what Haskins does, who knows where history ends up? It just happened to work out.
It comes back to my theory, dot here, dot there. This dot says, okay, Joe Burrow gets injured. He can't do everything they need him to do. Someone likes Dwayne Haskins a little bit more because Burrow can't get out there and put out what he's got. Burrow's got to go somewhere else to play. There you go. Dot 1 to dot 2.
All the time.
It does happen all the time, man.
Transfer portal is open and active. There's no reason why, even if Gunnar Stockton does commit to Auburn eventually, or say he may choose to stay at South Carolina. We don't know yet. So, but there is the transfer portal. They can grab a player from another team. People are out there. I just don't think it's worth getting worked up over an 18-year-old kid in the minute decision.
Yeah, man. Hey,
that's all I got, Rob.
Appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for calling the program.
All right, brother.
All right, there you go. Back out to the phones we go. Good afternoon. Welcome into the rundown.
Mr. Rob, have you been? You're a guy who likes to make predictions, and you've been, I don't know about this year, but last year you were doing great in picking football games, college football.
Yeah.
Okay. How about my odds? Giving it to you. About Deuce Staley being the next coach in Philly. What are the odds?
I think his name should be in the mix because he's got a lot of love in the city of brotherly love, but I don't know if they're going to go with that. I've heard that they're going after Lincoln Riley down at Oklahoma. That's what I've read online. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but we shall see.
Yeah, but getting a guy from the outside, the way things are, I think it's very dangerous because otherwise everybody, if things don't work out, everybody has to jump ship, including the GM, which should be the first guy to be fired for the quarterback deal. And I'm surprised nobody mentions that if the GM told the coach to do anything, of course the coach is going to say anything, but I think at this stage it would be a great prediction that to be there. That way, they have to make too many. They have to make open up too many cans. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to it's a game plan of the system that he wants to run and everything else. As far as being a leader of men, everything I've heard about Deuce Staley is guys want to follow him. So why not, man? It should work. Hopefully, he's in the mix up there. And
after all, it's a South Carolina guy, so who knows? I mean, he was assistant coach, running back, then became running back coach. Now was assistant to the coach. I mean, what's the next step? That makes the logical step to be up there and one go out of town when you got the team right there under your nose.
That's a very valid point, sir.
Thank you, sir.
About to follow that along. Yeah, the Eagles' job, interesting. Lincoln Riley supposedly in the mix there for the Eagles. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. All right, lots of man, they're killing each other in the chat room. Georgia fans and Bulldog fans and everybody else, Miami fans getting into the mix. Yeah, you can join that that discussion over there. Some of it I can't read on the air, but still some good stuff there. Alabama's got the crown, and right now everybody's throwing rocks at the throne as far as this season. Okay. But to say that team was the best team ever, come on, man. Let's slow down a little bit. More of the rundown when we come back. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. Miami fans should have nothing to say to anyone. That 2001 Miami team would blister this year's team, so be quiet. Be quiet. Stop with that nonsense. I know why Alabama fans don't want to talk about 2001. They don't want to talk about 2001 because they were 7-5. Oh, they don't want to talk about that, do you there, G Bama boy? Let's talk about 2001 when, you lost games to, you lost to South Carolina. You lost to Ole Miss. We don't want to talk about that, right? We don't want to talk about 2001 because that'll hurt your feelings. You want to live in this mentality of it's nothing but this season and Saban. Stop it. Welcome back into the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Lots to talk about that 2001 Miami team. And I looked up the Alabama team. The reason the Alabama fans, I noticed this during the break, they don't want to talk about that 2001 team because they were 7-5. Oh, man. Look, when you have Nick Saban and he can do what he's done, which, our caller earlier said he didn't like what they did as far as having a Waddle out on the field. Yeah, you can go with that. But overall, Nick Saban has built a machine down at Alabama. You can't really argue that. But the only, what was it? Someone tweeted this out this morning. The only team to beat him in the college football playoff national championship game is Dabo Swinney, and he's 2-1. Everybody else has been Nick Saban smoked them, to be completely honest. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. But, you got to give respect to Alabama for what they did this season. And, I watched more and more, and I said this, week 5 or 6? That would be week 1 for you folks in the Big Ten. You know what I'm talking about. When you started like week 1, when everybody else was 5 or 6 weeks in. Yeah, that. I said that Smith should have had the Heisman Trophy. And he definitely showed it last night. Definitely shown it last night. So what a great player he is. And he just makes plays, man. He had that one catch where it was almost like he was showing off for the pros, getting both feet down with that ball going out of bounds. And Mac Jones, 494 yards in the through the air. Just an outstanding game for them. Shout out to Tony watching online. Appreciate you and SEC Dog and all those guys over there. You can find the show. Just look for it on Facebook or on Twitter. It's at Rob Sounds Good. Anyway, tomorrow on the program, we'll start looking ahead towards next season, because that's what we're going to talk. We try to talk football here at least a little bit every day. We got to get into basketball season too, because we're I think it's 7-8 weeks away from Selection Sunday as far as for the NCAA tournament. Boy, that's going to be interesting. We'll have to get into that. Some of the odds came out already from Caesar Sportsbook for next season. They've got Alabama, I think it's -300, Clemson -400, and then it works its way down. So for folks wanting somebody else new in the picture, according to the odds makers, as of right now, you're going to have essentially the same thing. Simple as that. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. Milton says the Tigers are number 12. That's funny. Good stuff there, man. Tweet of the night from last night. Ohio State is playing like the 11th ranked team in the country. Dabo was right. I think I retweeted that over at Rob Sounds Good. But the reality is that if Clemson played, it would have probably been the same thing. So who can knock off those two for next season? We'll take calls on that too before we get out of here. We may get into that tomorrow. Who's the team that has the best chance next season to implement a challenge to the top of the college football world there with Clemson and Alabama, with Alabama leading the way? Out to the phones we go. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown.
Good afternoon. I hate to call back, but I'm going to ask you this quick question. I'm going to hang up and listen.
Sure.
Considering the weaknesses that Clemson has had for the last 2 seasons, whereas they've been exposed last 2 seasons, what would you say they need to improve upon? I'll hang up and listen.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, well, with Clemson, their defense has been exposed in the college football playoff, which is, if you're a Clemson fan, you see the message last night that Darion Kendrick is coming back. And most Tiger fans are like, man, that's going to be great. But if you stop and think about it, maybe it's time that Clemson got some different players in there, because once the CFP has gotten around, the past 2 seasons, the past 2 games that Clemson's lost in the CFP, they've had 42, 49 points scored against them. That is not good defense. You can almost say that Clemson almost looks small. Yes, almost looks small against some of these teams. So there's that too. So I think they need to beef up a little bit more. I think that this year's team, if they would have had the presence of Xavier Thomas being a guy that could be a dominant defensive lineman like they anticipated that he could be, in addition to having Miles Murphy on the other side with Brzee and Tyler Davis as your first and second, your 1-2 punch there at defensive tackle, Clemson would have been a much better, different team. A much better and different team, in my opinion. The secondary got lit up like a Christmas tree this year. I mean, really, really bad. So they got to figure out something with that. I don't know if the key is at safety. I don't know if it's, losing Tanner Muse, who seemed like he got burned a lot, but it seemed like he also made some plays. Maybe having Isaiah Simmons gone was an interesting thing on that front, because he was like a human eraser. He could erase some of the things that, may have been some discrepancies for the Tigers. But when you really stop and think about it, it's on the defensive end. The Clemson offense is going to be just fine. Just fine. Heading into next season, I mean, they're going to lose Jackson Carman. I get that, but they're not going to have issues at quarterback. I think they'll be fine at running back. Wide receiver is going to be great. I mean, I think Clemson's going to be fine on that front. The key to Clemson next season is, can they shore up the secondary and get themselves right? Because all of this stuff in the regular season doesn't mean anything. And that's for any team. It's how you look in championship time that matters. And Clemson's defense the past couple of seasons in championship time has not looked very good. And they got to fix that. All right. Shout out to the folks watching online today. Sean says Dabo has to stay off of TikTok and they may be okay. The TikTok videos with Dabo Sweeney are insane. I mean, insane with some of the stuff they have out there. Goodness gracious. Anyway, tomorrow on the show, we'll look ahead to next season. We'll talk about, and I want to bring this up tomorrow, so do your homework, ladies and gentlemen. What's the team next season that can challenge the mountaintop of, you can go Ohio State, you can go Clemson, you can go Alabama's obviously up at the very, very top. We'll get into that tomorrow on the rundown. Don't forget, follow me on Twitter. I'm at Rob Sounds Good. Blog page is up. All kinds of great stuff. FoxSportsRadio1400.com. Lawton Swan, the czar of Clemson sports on the vast, massive Clemson Sports Talk Radio Network is up next. We will be back at it tomorrow here on the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. If I had just drank some Coke or something, I would have blown it out my nose with Boise State. That's great. Outstanding on that, Jed. Oklahoma may be right. Might be right about that. Both of you there with that. Brock needs more confidence in his team. All right. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for joining me, man. It's nice to chat with you this afternoon, talk a little bit of sports. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Thanks a lot, guys.